Hi, welcome to Bookie. Today we will be unlocking how to read a book. Many people may scoff at the title of this book, thinking that as most of us have already received at least 10 years of education, we don't need to be taught how to read a book. However, the authors believe that even if we are college graduates, schools have not taught us how to properly read a book. Although we browse the internet for a variety of information, and sometimes even read novels for entertainment, this book suggests that while such type of reading is informative and entertaining, it does not help us improve our understanding and minds. We can only attain true growth when we read books that seem to surpass our abilities. Moreover, our perspectives on how to read are not entirely correct. For example, many people think that reading is just another form of listening. It is a passive acquisition of information. However, the authors of this book refute such a view. They suggested that the reception involved in reading is not an act as simple as inheriting a fortune, it is rather more similar to a catcher catching a ball during a baseball game. The catcher's active initiative to catch the ball is the same active intention as that of the pitcher and hitter. Therefore, reading is also an activity that requires an active initiative. The more intentional you are, the better the effect. In another example of our inaccurate perspective of reading, some people apply the same speed and reading method to whichever book they are browsing. But in fact, we need to apply different speeds and methods when reading different books. Such is the importance of How to Read a Book, a reading guide which will offer you detailed guidance for reading. Since its first publication in 1940, it has received a positive reception in many Western countries, leading it to being republished several times. The author's deep contemplation and broad view on the subject can make reading much easier for people who both do not understand it and are exploring it for the first time. This book not only introduces general methods for reading, giving specific techniques for different types of books, but also discusses the essence and meaning of reading. This book was written by two authors. The first author was Mortimer J.Adler, who was a scholar, educator, and editor. He was the chief editor of great books of the Western world and directed the editing of the 15th edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. The second author, Charles van Doren, who was a professor at Columbia University and later left his position to edit the Encyclopedia Britannica with Adler. He provided substantial literary material and rewrote the first edition of this book. Thus, both their names were on the new 1970 edition of this book. In this Bookie, we will explain to you the essence of this book in 3 parts, and guide you through the techniques and art of reading. Part 1, Why should we read? Part 2, The 4 levels of reading. Part 3, How to read different reading materials. Part 1, Why should we read? Let us begin with why we should read. Literary materials such as newspapers and magazines can provide you at once with information, pleasure, and even laughter. Through them, you can get access to the primary benefit of reading, which is to entertain and inform. These types of materials require little of its readers, only requiring them to be literate, as such materials necessitate a type of passive reading with little contemplation. This type of passive reading, which requires almost no thinking, exists all around us.